Well, hey there. I'm Jay. Welcome to my booth. Sight reading, it's a skill that I didn't really think was going to be as valuable as it has been in voiceover audiobook narration until I was pretty far into this career. So, I'll do a bit of sight reading, talk about my process while we're doing it, as well as provide you with some tips, tricks, and exercises to improve your own sight reading before and after I give it a shot here. Before we dive into all of this, however, if you like this stuff and you find it helpful, hey, if you'd be willing to take a couple seconds, click those buttons down there. It helps other folks find us and we appreciate it. And if you want to support these efforts directly, you can do so via a couple ways in the description below. There's also some learning opportunities down there for you. So, what is sight reading? It's used often in music where you receive sheet music and you have no preparation, no context. You don't know what the start to the finish, the journey in between is going to look like, and yet you are expected to perform it then and there as if you knew what the heck you were doing the whole time. And it's no small task, to be sure. And so in voiceover, there are a few reasons in particular why I find it so valuable. The volume of material that you're reading, the speed of production in this industry, and just being a flexible performer in the industry. Let's break those down a little bit. So, volume of material, pretty self-explanatory. The amount of stuff that you'll end up reading, it doesn't afford you the amount of time and energy that, say, I would have had if I were doing a theater performance or film and TV where, you get the script, you have a bit of time to spend with it. More often than not, you memorize stuff. In voiceover, it moves far too quickly and there's far too much stuff for you to really dig in hard on everything. And so having a sight reading backbone can help you to be more confident in your delivery. The way I think about it, in my first year of voiceover, I submitted something like 2,000 auditions, give or take a couple hundred here or there, across all genres. And that's a lot. That's a lot of auditions, which meant I was moving pretty darn fast, i.e., I was putting out a lot of quantity, but I also had to be sure that I was putting out quality work. The metaphor that I like to use in this is if you're throwing a bunch of trash into the wind, it doesn't matter how much trash you're throwing out there, nobody's really going to want to pick up your trash. If you're throwing 2,000, sure, you can be proud of yourself that you threw 2,000 bits of trash. However, if you throw $100 bills into the air, chances are somebody's going to pick up those. So even if you're throwing out $5 bills, $1 bills, sometimes even spare change into the wind, sometimes somebody's going to pick it up. And so it's a balance of both quantity, moving quickly, and quality, which sight reading helps to merge the two. The next, speed of production. As I said, this industry moves really, really quickly. Oftentimes I'll book a job the night before or get told that I've booked a job. They'll say, tomorrow you have a session from this time to this time. And often I won't receive the script until I'm in the session with everybody. Now, they're not going to expect me to perform it perfectly right off the bat, but having the ability to get pretty darn close right off the bat is usually a mark of a really solid professional, and your clients will be very happy with you if you have that ability at your back, that sight reading capability. And in addition to that, flexibility. In those live sessions, in feedback stuff, they're going to send you adjustments, they're going to change the script, they're going to move lines around, which isn't anything to get stressed out about because, again, you can take your time with it. But having a sight reading sort of support system behind you can just make you more confident in being more flexible, diving in with conviction, confidence, and commitment to make that read more sellable on the first go. That all is sort of more on the commercial, corporate, animation, the true voiceover side of things. And then audiobook narration, it too moves really, really quickly. And even if you had time to prepare for an audiobook in the performance of it, more often than not, you'll get the book a week, maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky before you're supposed to go in to record. And depending on how quickly you read, And, you probably just wouldn't want to do a practice narration beforehand. That's just not how things are done in audiobook narration, meaning leaning on a foundation of sight reading as just a support system. After you've read through the script, in the audiobook, in the novel, or whatever you're narrating, just the general flow of things, being able to sight read stuff, you can sort of launch yourself on a downhill ride and just go along with it. And that sort of storytelling I personally find really, really rewarding and exciting to do. So, what are things that can help you, before I dive in and give it a shot myself, in sight reading? Firstly, trust the punctuation. Oftentimes, punctuation, commas, periods, semicolons, dashes, hyphens, all of those things can be clues to you as to a change of thought. Maybe there's a shift in what this person is saying at this moment. Maybe there's a parenthetical, and a parenthetical is here's this idea number one here, and sometimes it also does this thing down here, and then we go back up to number one. Parenthetical is a qualifier in the middle. You can think of it something in parentheses, parenthetical. So punctuation can give you clues as to thought patterns and hints as to where you might want to breathe, which brings us to our next point, using your breath. Now, it's funny because when I'm working with folks who are early in their voiceover careers, often we're preoccupied with the breath. Am I breathing too much? Am I breathing not enough? Are my breaths too loud? Am I not narrating quickly enough? There's a pressure that I'm not moving through the text quickly. All of that, to me, is noise that you don't need to pay attention to. The breath, more often than not, will take care of itself, provided that you are invested in the ideas. And in addition to that, when you breathe, particularly in long-form narration, you're giving the audience, the listener, an opportunity to breathe with you. You're also giving them a chance to catch up to what you're saying, to digest the information that you've just given them. And both of those things are a gift to the person. You're letting them relax with you, you're letting them breathe with you, and take the time to hear the words you're saying. So never feel obligated to push through your breath. In addition to that, if you see a period coming up and you're like, there's no punctuation between now and then, and I kind of have to push to the end of this sentence because it's right over there and I can probably make it, and if I just push a little further, I might make it to the end of the sentence. The listener's experience at that point, they don't care what you're saying. They can't listen to what you're saying because, for my money, I'm now worried whether or not you're going to pass out. You have got to breathe, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense. Worst case scenario, you can go back and retake it. Best case scenario, you've given the audience an opportunity to breathe with you, and it's a gift. And then the last sort of performance note is pitch variety. I'll demonstrate this as best I can when I jump into whatever I'm going to sight read in a moment. But what I mean by pitch variety, every language, every accent, every dialect, it has a musicality to it. We move our voices up and down in pitch in terms of our emotional content, the information that we're delivering. And what pitch variety does is it lets the listener in on A, how we're feeling emotionally, but it also gives them clues as to the important bits of any given sentence. Again, I'll try and demonstrate it in the sight reading if I can. But the thing that's cool about pitch variety is even if I'm not really sure exactly what I'm saying, which can happen in sight reading often, if I even arbitrarily, meaning I just move my voice up and down willy-nilly without really knowing what I'm saying, it's interesting how when I play it back for myself, more often than not, I'm like, I sound like an expert in this subject, which is really important if you're narrating something that is in a nonfiction space. Because, for example, me, I don't have a PhD in psychotherapy. I don't know half of the words in psychotherapy. I've got a degree in psychology, but I don't know that world as intimately and as expertly as someone with a PhD, i.e. the author, does. And yet, I need to sound like an expert. and pitch variety can help you with that. Again, I'll try and demonstrate it in sight reading, but use it to your advantage. And then the last thing, it's probably a no-brainer, but practice. It helps you to get used to different voices, different authors, different genres, different syntax flows. So what I've done to practice is if I'm reading a book for pleasure on my own, sometimes I'll just read a couple pages out loud to myself and try to commit emotionally as best I can. Again, I'll do that in a second. And then sometimes I'll just pick up a random newspaper article, magazine article. I'll open a Wikipedia article, something that's really dense, like a manual for an air conditioner. Things like that can be really, really helpful in just getting you used to reading things that may be weird, maybe boring, maybe just purely information-driven. And all of those things can just help you to be more facile in your sight reading. One author that I particularly love, coming from an acting background, in sight reading in particular, is Shakespeare. Intimidating for many people, and particularly because it sounds like a bunch of nonsense until you train your ear to hear the flow of thought. And so it's sort of like that can be your end game at the sight reading gym, is practicing Shakespeare. And I've actually found Shakespeare helpful in both all of the things I just said, trusting the punctuation, using my breath, and pitch variety, but also in letting myself sort of go along for the ride and then understand what I just said after the fact. So give it a try if you wish. So, with all that said, now I'm going to dive into some sight reading on my own, and we'll just see how it goes. This is one of my favorite websites, Project Gutenberg. They do a bunch of public domain. They release a bunch of public domain literature that's either super obscure or just old texts. And it's a great place to go when you have no idea what you're going to read and you want to practice sight reading. So I'm going to try, this one looks a little too heavy. Let's try This Marrying by Margaret Culkin Banning. So again, in case it wasn't clear, I have no idea what this is, but I'll try and talk through what I'm doing as best I can. Chapter 1. You should have a bridesmaid, said Aunt Carolyn. Everyone was so surprised that you weren't. And the yellow would have been so becoming with you so dark. Horatia smiled, and her smile carried no regrets for her lost opportunity. Everyone, as said her aunt, had been surprised at her refusal to be a bridesmaid at the wedding of her friend. But with a quick, reminiscent glance back at the ceremony, Horatia congratulated herself again on the decision that had held out against the requests of Edna and the expostulations of her aunt. What a word, expostulations. Okay, so there was some stuff going on there that I'd love to break down. So, obviously, the dialogue, I just made a completely arbitrary choice. Were I narrating this book for real, I would have read it beforehand and I would know Aunt Carolyn's or Aunt Caroline's, that's an important distinction to make, her disposition. Is she a harsh person? Is she old? Is she really disparaging to potential old maids like this person? I'm presuming that this is set in like the 19th century or something like that. And then in this next bit, Horatia smiled, and her smile carried no regrets for her lost opportunity. Everyone, as her aunt said, that's an example of a parenthetical. So a parenthetical, you can think of sentences as having sort of levels. Level 1 is the essence of the sentence. So we could essentially remove as her aunt said and say, everyone had been surprised at her refusal to be a bridesmaid at the wedding of her friend. That's all at this level 1. And then a parenthetical, we're sort of splitting that sentence and inserting a little nugget here. And that little nugget, you can either shift it up in pitch or down in pitch from that initial level. Everyone, as her aunt said, had been surprised at her refusal, so I dropped the pitch. Conversely, everyone, as her aunt said, had been surprised at her refusal. Either works, and training yourself to see parentheticals as you go can be really helpful in breaking things up. Additionally, parentheticals are great places to throw in a breath. To note. Then this next thing, but. Words like but, and, therefore, however, etc., those you can term as turning words, where you know, or more often than not, there will be a shift in thought. We've been going this direction, but we're going to now go this way. And so that can give you a clue that now we're going to change our tack. There's a different thought coming here. So when I go, had been surprised at her refusal to be a bridesmaid at the wedding of her friend. But with a quick, reminiscent glance at the ceremony, we know that here, everyone was disparaging and was like, why wouldn't you be a bridesmaid? And she said, well, but I knew that this was the right choice for me. Horatia. What a name, Horatia. And then she congratulates herself against the expostulations. Let's keep going. She recalled the hurried, fussy little ceremony, and the curious people, another parenthetical, the space reserved in the front parlor with all its tall cathedral candles, its lavish 10 yards of white satin ribbon, and the rose-pink prayer rug. A faint odor of candles and coffee and perfume clung to the memory. I took my time there. I let myself breathe before going into a faint odor. Just that little breath allowed me to gather myself, scan a little bit ahead in the sentence to see where I was going. In the minds of her aunt and West Park, these things were vastly suitable. Just as to them, Edna Wallace was still her best friend. Quotes, I usually do this even when I've narrated it before or know what's happening, but doing the air quotes, you'll probably see me do those in these videos often. It helps to lift that a bit and tilt it, almost like an italics in the voice. Best friend, because they had played together as children and gone through high school together. But Horatia realized that her college experience and her 4 years of absence from West Park had made great gaps between her and the bride of last night, as well as between her and this middle-aged aunt and uncle with whom she sat at breakfast. So the reason I paused there, I was considering interjecting. There's no punctuation after West Park, but I took a breath there. And the reason I did that, this is something that just came to me from practice, but usually after a nugget of thought like her 4-year absence from West Park, it's going to move on to some extra qualifier, if that makes sense. So I give myself a moment to rest and then move on to this next bit. And her 4-year absence from West Park had made great gaps between her and the bride of last night. Alternatively, you could possibly go, and her 4-year absence from West Park had made great gaps between her and the bride of last night. No, I like the first one. Scratch that. Do what works for you, but after West Park works for me. Let's keep going and see if we can make it to the end of this paragraph. Her hair was brown and heavy and shaded into the brown of her eyes to add still another tone to the whole that her aunt had Her hair was brown and heavy and shaded into the brown of her eyes to add still another tone to the whole that her aunt characterized as "you so dark." Another quotations, and that's an example of a sentence where, hey, I'm sight reading, I flubbed. Didn't make a big deal out of it. If you're recording in a live session, you don't need to make a big deal out of it. Everybody knows that mistakes happen. Pause, take a break, go to the top, try it again. Right as rain. Her clothes were simple, for she scorned, on principle, all the minor affectations of dress and quick changes of fashion. But she had an eye for color and line, which developed gowns which were sometimes beautiful and sometimes startling. Again, but, and pausing after sometimes beautiful and sometimes startling. It gives a nice little anticipatory moment. That's just me, in the flow, baby. Not that there was an unlimited number of them, Uncle George was generous, but generous by West Park standards, and by Aunt Caroline's expenditures. And Aunt Caroline still considered $50 a scandalous price for a suit or a cloak. Horatia never grumbled about money or about clothes. This morning she was dressed for the city, and her satin blouse and slim tailored suit set off her young health perfectly. Again, I breathed after slim tailored suit. I didn't want to make this qualifier before, but it's happened twice now. Usually in sentence structures like that, whenever there's a noun that stops and in the middle of a sentence like that, her satin blouse and slim tailored suit, those are both noun things going on. I don't know why, and I don't know if this is a rule categorically, but often in my experience, after that noun is a decent place to take a breath. Even her aunt and uncle were conscious of fresh energy at the breakfast table. "I didn't want to be a bridesmaid," she answered. It always makes me seasick to try and walk to music." Anyway, that's a breakdown on my sight reading, sort of what's going on in my mind. And again, a lot of that is 15 years as a stage actor, a lot of Shakespeare, and practicing on my own. But it's all helpful, and it's a great skill to have. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions about this, anything else voiceover related, of course, you're always welcome to reach out here on my website. There's coaching on my website if you're interested in working on this type of thing one-on-one. And until the next one of these, be well, everybody, and hey, Happy New Year. Bye now. Toodles.